this as
Yeah.
Friday. All right. Aditi, I'm waiting for your cue to kick off. Yeah. So the minute I see a message, I'll just kick off.
Yeah, if you like, we can give a couple of minutes or a minute. I think people are still coming in. Vinesh, when you kick off, would you want the screen up or would you just like to speak for your bit and then we can get the screen up? What would you prefer?
Yeah. Again, I was on mute. Hey, Aditi, be careful. Yeah, I'm getting muted out. I'm not able to unmute. Yeah. Okay, Raghav. So to answer your question, up to you. I mean, we can. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to be talking exactly in the same lines as Friday. So you could just have the background of, I don't know if you have an OpenAI Arise background, but if you don't, just the broad background is fine. It doesn't matter.
Okay. No, so let's just share screen once you're done. Royston, maybe you could bring up your screen and I can talk about the learning
So
accelerator for 30 seconds and then hand over to
yeah,
Royston.
the cue is I hand over the mic to you after that little photo session, and then you can take over and get the screen up. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vinesh Menon. I'm the Director General and CEO of Arise. That's Association for Reinventing School Education. It is an industry chamber body which, alongside with FICCI, which is the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, is focused purely on school education sector for the country in India. Now, on behalf of Arise Governing Board and the Secretariat, I welcome all of you. I think we've got a very solid cohort of school leaders, principals, academic leaders, IT leaders, and all educators for this very important session. This was put together by Arise and OpenAI. Now, OpenAI is an organization that is synonymous with ChatGPT, which I think by now is pretty much part of our everyday life. Now, while ChatGPT was, let's say, we came to know about ChatGPT in the year 2022, it is in August 25 that OpenAI and ChatGPT ventured into school education. And in August 25, two important announcements came up. One, of course, is the OpenAI tie-up with Arise, and we're particularly proud of it. And this is to be done to jointly add value to school educators through OpenAI, through ChatGPT, and to make teaching and delivery of classroom experience far more exciting. And two, onboarding of Raghav Gupta as a head of education for India and Asia Pacific at OpenAI. Now, Raghav is an INSEAD MBA, brings over 2 decades of experience in education technology, consulting, and business growth across India and APAC. Now, before coming into OpenAI, folks, Raghav has served as a managing director for India and Asia Pac at Coursera. And I think Coursera is known to many of us who's been in the education sector now for a while. And he was instrumental in scaling that platform significantly for the region. Now, in his current role at OpenAI, he's going to be leading the integration of AI into education systems, working with schools, higher education institutions, and government partners to support teacher upskilling, student learning, and research on AI in classrooms. And I'm now inviting Raghav to take over the mic from me, set the context for today's meeting, and kickstart the exciting session ahead. But hold on, Raghav, before you do that, I think it's also important that all of us, I think I'm given to understand that there are more than 1,000 educators and 1,000 folks in this program and this platform today alongside YouTube and Facebook. And I think it's very important that we take a nice little digital picture. So may I request all of you to keep yourself on mute but open your videos. Let's just take a snap, and then I'm going to invite Raghav straight away to take the mic over from me. And Aditi, you will do the honors of helping us close this little screenshot. Give us a cue when we are done, Aditi.
It's done now. We can start the session.
Okay, Raghav, over to you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope you're excited for what I think is going to be a powerful session. We call it the OpenAI Learning Accelerator. And there are two parts to the OpenAI Learning Accelerator. This is what we are doing with Arise. We're also doing it with the Ministry of Education and in the higher education space as well. And as a part of this, we are bringing a lot of the training on how one can use ChatGPT for education. So today's session is about that. And I will introduce my colleague, Royston Lobo, who will lead us through this in just a second. And second, we are also making available the OpenAI tools to all of you so that you can use these tools in your day-to-day work. You might have seen this announcement already. I will share a bit more detail later as well. That ChatGPT Go, which is the paid version of ChatGPT, is going to be available to everybody in India, including this group, all the teachers of Arise schools from tomorrow onwards. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. And we'll try and make the session interactive. So please, it's a large group. If you have questions, please share them in the chat. My suggestion would be share questions on what Royston is taking us through at that moment in time. And then towards the end, we will have time for broader questions as well. And I will invite some people, time permitting, to also ask questions live as well. With that, it gives me a lot of pleasure to introduce Royston Lobo, who's going to lead the training for us today. Royston is an adoption and deployment lead. He's based in Singapore, and coincidentally, he happens to be in India. He's in Bangalore today. Royston, wonderful to have you, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raghav. Good afternoon, everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you today, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us during the session. So as Raghav mentioned, I'm Royston Lobo. I have the pleasure of being a PAC Success lead, and while I'm usually in Singapore, I am in cool Bangalore today. And one thing that I do want to share with all of you is that education is a passion of mine. It has transformed the life of my family as well as myself. And so it is quite exciting for me to know that we have so many educators on this call taking the time to develop your own skills, but more importantly, also advocating and evangelizing that for the broader Indian ecosystem. Now, the content and the session here that we're presenting to you today is brought to you from a team that includes Raghav, myself, as well as my colleagues, Carlotta and Shay. You'll be potentially coming across us if you're joining future sessions, but I do want to say thank you to the broader team who's helping bring this to life for all of you. Now, in terms of the content for today's session, we'll be going through ChatGPT and learning some foundational skills on how to best use ChatGPT if you're a new user. I'll be going through some skills on prompting, as well as customizing ChatGPT so that you can make good use of it, particularly in your role as educators. Towards the end of the session, I will be sharing some resources for you to continue on your learning journey as well. And if you have any questions and comments, as Raghav mentioned, I strongly encourage you to use the chat window to type them in. And I'll be taking pauses during the session to address questions as they come in as well. And Raghav will be helping me with that. Now, before we get into ChatGPT as a tool, I want to share a little bit of an understanding of what OpenAI does and why we exist. So the mission of OpenAI is to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. And as you can imagine, education plays a huge part in humanity's existence as well as our progress as well. And so when a tool like ChatGPT is introduced to the world, it made AI accessible to everyone. And it's quite exciting to me that we've gone across generations, across countries, across almost every perceivable boundary, and people are able to access technology that is effectively enabling them to be a super version of themselves. And never has there been a better time to be a learner or potentially an educator as well. Now, this has also translated into life skills that are important in industry and in society. So just as an example, professionals who are using ChatGPT at work, and that includes educators, they are getting more tasks completed and they're getting more work done faster as well. But more importantly, their individual abilities are now exceeding what they were capable of before. And just as a personal example, I'm challenged with my visual design skills, and I've really enjoyed being able to use ChatGPT and other AI tools to be able to be far more creative, particularly visually, than what I was capable of before. And so if you've had a weakness with storytelling, idea generation, maybe just drafting in a language that you're not comfortable with, you can now use tools like ChatGPT to go much faster and much further than what was previously possible. And I think in that vein, it's very important for us to also impart these skills onto the next generation of learners so that they're equipped with the skills as they enter the workforce or society in general. Now, with that background being set, let's go into ChatGPT itself. Now, if you are on a device, which I'm hoping you are, and you have the opportunity to have ChatGPT open, you're more than welcome to do so. However, everything that we are talking about today is recorded, and so you can also catch up on this later on if you want to practice these skills as well. Now, with ChatGPT you have the ability to not just learn and ask basic questions. The capabilities in ChatGPT, including ChatGPT Go, are quite enormous. You've got the ability to analyze data, to create images, to do research, to do things like translation, to do creative writing, to organize information, to read and share. And so these possibilities are only ever growing. And so I think it's important for us every few weeks and months to take a stock of what this tool is capable of and to see how it can play a role in our own lives. So I'm going to switch over to ChatGPT itself. Hopefully you're all familiar with this interface for ChatGPT. So we've got a very simple prompt bar right in the middle over here, and you have the ability to type anything in and ask a question. So to begin with, I'm going to give it a basic prompt that I prepared earlier. So it's a prompt that says, give me creative classroom ideas for celebrating our school's annual day with my students. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this button to send it through. Now, ChatGPT has taken a few seconds and has come back to me with some ideas for the annual day. Now, I can quickly review and scan these ideas to see if there are any ideas that I like. And I'm just looking through, I see quite a few ideas over here. And I think I see about 8 or 9 ideas. Maybe I'll say I like ideas 2, 3, and 6. Help me create a list of activities to make them happy. And so I can take a response that's come from ChatGPT and I can iterate on it and actually go deeper. So if I liked a few of these ideas, I can now actually see what would it take to bring these to life. And now I've got essentially an activity list here for the ideas that were generated. Now, if you had a team of people that you're working with, you could also use ChatGPT to divide tasks and maybe even come up with a timeline in order to make this come to life. So just from an ideation perspective, we've got a very simple example of how you can use ChatGPT here for ideation. Now, ChatGPT also has the ability to read files, including Word documents, PDF documents, CSVs, as well as images. So I wanted to show you what that looks like. So it's good hygiene to start a new chat whenever you're starting something different or having a new conversation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the plus button over here. And I'm going to click the button that says Add Files and Photos. And so I've got some pre-prepared files over here. I'm going to attach this one. It's a report, it's a school report on the past month, on some on some updates that I need to do things with. And so in this scenario, I'm taking on the persona of being a school principal over here. And so I'm going to paste in a prompt to help me take this school report and help me understand what needs attention and give me some suggested actions for next steps. So I've attached the file, I've got my prompt over there, and very quickly ChatGPT has come back to me, analyzed the information in the file, highlighted the issues, as well as given me the next steps for how to address those issues. You can see that there's quite a bit of detail in here, and obviously you could then go into the file itself, go through it and review it for yourself, or you can just use this and work with that as your next step. Now, quite often when we have information like this, we need to communicate with an audience. And in this scenario, as a school principal, I may want to communicate with the staff at school to think about how we will action on these points and these recommendations. And so what I can do is I can actually get ChatGPT to produce an email summary for me to send out to my colleagues and my staff. And that's what I'm going to do next. And so right within ChatGPT here, we have an interactive canvas that has popped up. And it's got me a draft of an email that has taken in the information that was in the file itself. It has summarized it and given it to me in a way that is very digestible for my colleagues. Now, you could go one step further and click the Open in Email button, which will then open it in your email client. Or alternatively, you can click on the Copy button over here and then paste it into something like Outlook or Gmail or wherever you write your emails. Now, if you feel like this email is maybe too long, you could also update, you can write a prompt to actually make it shorter. So you can go make the email more succinct. And what ChatGPT do is it will take that initial email and make it more succinct following your instructions as well. You can also go further and say, remove this section on staff. So that's one way to change things. Or alternatively, what's even easier is you can actually go right in here and actually delete content from the box. So just like that, you can work on your draft right here. And once you're done, you can copy it and take it somewhere else. So it's very easy for anyone to now take content and raw information and then turn that into potentially an email, a summary, a newsletter, or something of that nature. So we've seen a couple of examples of how you could work with ChatGPT using files and using basic prompting. Now, one of my favorite features in ChatGPT is to actually talk to ChatGPT. The reason I like that is that most of us are much quicker at talking and speaking versus typing. And it's also far easier to have a brainstorming conversation when you can hear ideas being said out loud. And so I'll show you what that looks like. So right in ChatGPT over here, we've got two icons right next to the prompt window. The first one is a dictation capability. So I'll show you how this works. Give me the weather forecast for Bangalore for the next 7 days. When you use this button, it just transcribes everything you say, and it will send that as a prompt. So this is very, very similar to you just typing it in. However, the response comes back as a text. If you want, you can read that response out loud by clicking this button over here.
Weather for Bengaluru, India. Current conditions, partly sunny, 81 degrees.
So you can see how that works. If if your eyes are busy and maybe you need to be, if your hands are busy and eyes are busy, you could potentially be listening to a response. Now, the other option is you can click on the other button over here, And this is what we call advanced voice mode. And if you click on this button, you have the ability to have a voice conversation with ChatGPT. And so let's try this one out. So I'm planning a trip to Mumbai, and I'm not quite sure what the weather is going to be like over the next week. Can you help me with the weather and any sort of tips for travel to Mumbai?
Sure. For Mumbai, over the next week, you're looking at mostly warm and humid weather. Highs will be around 30 to 31 degrees Celsius and lows in the low 20s. Early in the week, you might get a couple of showers, especially later in the day on Tuesday.
So you can see how that works. Now, of course, don't just need to ask it about the weather. You could also ask it about history. I'm trying to understand the major components of Indian history. How would you break them down for me?
Absolutely. Let's break it down into some big, digestible chunks. Indian history is vast, but you can think of it in a few major phases. First, you've got the ancient period, which includes the Indus Valley
Hold on.
civilization and
I
the
would-
Vedic age.
I would prefer if you spoke in an Indian accent for me, please.
Of course, I can do that. So let's continue in an Indian accent. When we talk about Indian history, after the ancient period, we move into the classic.
Now, it is possible to get it to speak in different accents. I usually do a little bit of prompting to make that work. But you also have the ability to choose different voices when you use voice mode. And that can help you with just having a more pleasant voice experience with the platform. If you are someone who has to write speeches, come up with ideas, maybe you would like to summarize some thoughts in your mind, you can also use voice mode to do that. And I find it to be a very effective tool for any sort of ideation, brainstorming, or even just general notes capturing as well. We've seen a couple of different abilities for us to input context into ChatGPT. And the reason I highlight this is ChatGPT is only as good as the information you provide it about your context. And so whether it's uploading a file, typing in a prompt, or speaking something, your ability to communicate clearly with ChatGPT will have a direct correlation with the benefit you will get out of the tool. So the more you put in, the better quality and the more you get out as well. All right. I think now might be a good time for us to monitor the chat, Raghav, and see if there are any questions that are worth answering at this point.
Yeah, one question which is topical to what you're currently showing. What about languages other than English in voice mode? Western Indian languages, maybe you could even show us if it speaks in Hindi or, Tamil or whatever.
Great question. ChatGPT is capable of speaking in Indian languages as well. Now, my own ability with Indian languages is poor, so let's see how we can get this working. So I'm trying to understand, actually, let me end this one. I would like to translate the following few words from English into Tamil. Can you do that for me?
Absolutely. Just go ahead and tell me what you need translated.
So I'd like to tell my Tamil students that I deeply appreciate their effort that they're putting in class, and I would love to learn more about their culture.
நான் என் தமிழ் மாணவர்களிடம் சொல்ல விரும்புகிறேன் நீங்கள் வகுப்பில் செலுத்துகிற பிரயத்தனையை நான் மனதார பாராட்டுகிறேன் மற்றும் உங்கள் பண்பாட்டை பற்றிய இன்னும் அதிகமாக கற்றுக்கொள்ள விரும்புகிறேன்.
Can you also tell them that I would love to visit Chennai sometime soon, and I think that the food over there is delicious.
அவர்களிடம் இதுவும் சொல்லுங்கள் நான் விரைவில் ஏதாவது சமயத்தில் சென்னை வர விரும்புகிறேன் அதற்கு பிறகு அங்கிருக்கும் உணவு மிக அருமையானது என்று நான் நினைக்கிறேன்.
So that demonstrates some language capabilities. I've also used it as a translator between two languages. So you can actually set up ChatGPT to say, every time you hear something in English, please say it out in Tamil. And if you hear something in Tamil, please say it out in English. So you have bidirectional communication capabilities. You also have the ability to just use it in a different language all the time. And that also works well. Raghav, was there anything else that would be worth addressing right now?
Maybe a couple of shorter questions. Let's take them now. they're not exactly the topic you're on, Royston, but good to take them. So one is a question from Nitesh at Khaitan World School. I want to know if I have paid for ChatGPT, can I use Sora in the same subscription? And the new version of Sora is not live in India. I don't know if you have a response to that and if you can take that now. And I'll pose the second question as well, which I think is a good, simple question. This is a question from Suja Mary. Can we upload two or more documents to summarize into a single document with ChatGPT?
Okay. So maybe I'll start off with this last question first. The short answer is yes, you can upload multiple documents and ask ChatGPT to summarize them, combine them, or even transform them into something different. And that is a very common use case, both within the education sector as well as in industry as well amongst workplaces. When it comes to Sora, it's still very emerging in terms of access, and it's still not broadly accessible. And right now, it's still not broadly available within India. And so I don't have an up-to-date response on how to best access it right now if you're located in India. But the goal within OpenAI is to make sure that we have this available as broadly as quickly as possible, while also being very mindful that it takes up, we need to make sure we have the infrastructure ready to support the demand that we're expecting. So I'm grateful and I thank you for your interest. And I hope that everyone around the world will have access very soon. But at this time, my understanding is it's not broadly available for users in India.
Perfect. Thank you. We can move forward, Royston. And just as FYI, Sheg is here as well, and we will answer some questions in the chat itself, and some I will bring to you for you to answer live.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. So let's move on. So we've looked at a little bit of speaking and a little bit of prompt entry. So the next concept I'd like to cover is the idea of prompting. Now, some of you have heard of this term called prompt engineering. And obviously, anytime the word engineering is put next to a word, it can make it seem more complex than it might be. And so I want to break it down today in language that we can hopefully all understand. So the basic premise of prompt engineering is that the models and the technology that serves these responses to you in ChatGPT, they're trained in certain ways where if you enter input of a certain kind, you'll get better responses out. And so prompt engineering is the craft of putting a prompt together to get more effective output that addresses what you're trying to find. Now, simply put, it is as simple as chatting, but it is a structured way of chatting so that we are clear with what we're trying to achieve. And the fundamentals of any good prompt should have these three things. It should have the tasks that you're trying to achieve, the context of who you are and what you're trying, and the environment that this prompt is being created in. And then lastly, the expectation of what output you are seeking. Now, it's not mandatory for you to enter these three things into a prompt or incorporate them. However, you might find that the quality of output may not be as high as you want it to be if you don't incorporate these things in. Now, another principle that's also very helpful for you to keep in mind is prompting is also not necessarily a once and done activity. Sometimes you might find that the response that has come back doesn't quite meet what you're trying to get. And that's okay. The activity that you need to get better at is iterating on your prompt and clarifying it. And quite often, you can use the analogy of conversing with another human being in terms of how you can iterate. So just like when you ask someone else a question and they don't quite give a clear answer, we usually have a follow-up question. And so in prompting, there is also a lot of follow-up activity to make sure that you get the response you're trying to do. Now, as you get better and better and more skilled at using AI technology, you will also learn different approaches and understand what works and what doesn't work. And so I'll give you an example of a prompt engineering tip that I quite often use. And so at the beginning of my prompt, I usually add a persona in there to help me. So I'm going to use the voice dictation feature to type out this prompt. you are an expert teaching assistant. I would like to create a history handout sheet covering the topics of the Roman era for my grade 7 students. I would like this in the format of 2 pages, A4, with 3 interactive activities. So what I've done here is I've given it a persona, I've given it a task that I would like it to do, and I've set some expectations of what I want the output to be as well. And so I can go ahead and set that. And so I've got my response and it's being generated right now. But the premise here is that by including these components of the prompt, I'm more likely to get a better response because I'm essentially saying, I want you to act as an expert teaching assistant. Now, your imagination is the limit when it comes to the personas you want to put out there. So for example, when I'm doing research on the internet for products, for shopping, for example, I might say you are an expert shopping agent. If I'm looking to plan some travel, I say you are an expert travel agent. And just doing that allows ChatGPT to understand what skill set you are trying to bring out of the tool. And the responses are created using that skill set in mind. Now, the benefit of writing good prompts is that your first response is more likely to address your needs versus me having to iterate multiple times before I get there. Now, if you're particularly happy with this response right now, you have the ability to click the share button and share this as a conversation with somebody else. Now, within ChatGPT Go, you have the ability to create a link over here. So I'm going to copy this link. And then this conversation can be shared with any other user, and essentially they can continue on that conversation as well. So this is very helpful if you want to show someone the journey that you've taken with your prompting and share the conversation with the third person. Now, when we use ChatGPT Go, we have GPT-5 available to us. If you are interested in using some of the more advanced models in ChatGPT, those are available in other kinds of ChatGPT accounts. Now, everyone in India soon will have access to a free version of ChatGPT Go, which is fantastic. If you are interested in something more powerful and you're using it as a personal user, this is where you can see what the remaining options are. For the purposes of today's training, I do want to make sure that everything that we talk about is available in the Go account. And if you're in India, you should be seeing this as free or zero very, very soon. All right, so we move on to some other tips and tricks about using ChatGPT as well. Now, if you created a ChatGPT account recently or even a long time ago, something that you may not have done is actually customize ChatGPT. And so we'll see what that looks like. Now, if you click on your name on the bottom left-hand side and click on the button called Personalization, you'll see that a number of settings will be shown in front of you. Now, you have the ability to set custom instructions, and this allows you to dictate to ChatGPT what style would you like responses in. Now, you've got some pre-built styles over here, and so I'm going to be using let's go with the straight shooting one. And what that does is it basically puts up some very brief sentences around the style of responses you'd like. Now, you could use multiple of them and compound them. Alternatively, you can just say, click on forward thinking and I get my custom instructions. Now, additional things you can do, you can provide your nickname. And what that does is it allows ChatGPT to be more personal to you. So you'll see that my name has appeared multiple times in ChatGPT, and that's because I had entered it over here. I also recommend entering in your occupation, particularly if you're using this in the education context. so that ChatGPT will understand that you're approaching this as a teacher or educator. Now, you have the ability to provide more information about yourself as well, including things that you are focused on, your goals, any sort of other achievements that you'd like to have. And so I've got some over here. And what I'll do is I'm going to put them in the chat just so they're available to you if you want to use this as a starter. But you can also just generate your own. And so you feel free to be creative in how you want to use this. Now, there is a limit on Zoom's text entry, so I'm going to put as much as I can. However, again, you feel free to either write this by yourself, or you could actually just go into ChatGPT and say, I want to create some custom instructions for myself. Now, you'll notice that there are also the ability for you to reference saved memories, as well as reference chat history. Now, a huge benefit of using ChatGPT is its ability to remember information about you over time and then factor that in to improve the responses for you. Now, how this works is you could actually say, remember that I live in Mumbai and travel 2 hours to school each day. Now, if you want to add a memory, you could very simply just type something like this in. And what it will do is it will update ChatGPT's memory of you. So you'll see that there's a pop-up that comes up here that says updated save memory. You can click on that pop-up and actually then manage your memories and see the rest of your memories as well. And you can then delete these memories if you find that they're inaccurate, or you could have a bank of memories and search through them over time. So this allows ChatGPT to be helpful in understanding who you are and what you want to achieve. Okay, so next up, I want to share a little bit about projects. Now, projects is the ability for us to actually organize our conversations and have related information about a project contained together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a project over here, and I'm going to say, call it class 5A. Now you can have a project for anything and everything. They're completely customizable for how you want to use them. However, there is one thing that you need to know when you create a project, which is when you see the settings icon on the top right-hand side, you have the ability to choose the memory for a project. Now, this sometimes can be perceived as an advanced feature and advanced knowledge. But the reason this is important for you to know is you have the ability to have a project-only memory, which means everything you speak about in that project is contained to that project, and it does not access memories from elsewhere. And vice versa, other projects do not know the conversations that are happening in here. Now, this happens, usually there's not many people who need a project-only memory, but it is available if you're looking for it. Now, the other option would be to have default, which is all memories that are in that project are also accessible to other projects as well. I'm seeing a little bit of visual design that's on my screen. If the admins on the call are able to restrict that on their side, it would be fantastic. Thank you.
And if I could just
And
request, I think people are probably inadvertently annotating on the screen. I don't think it's switched off, but we are cleaning it up as we go along. Yeah,
thank
sorry,
you.
Rose.
Yes.
Back to you.
For those of you who are seeking to be creative, we have the ability to go and create images in ChatGPT, and you can use your creative spirits in there as well. All right. Now, deep research and research is another capability that is very popular in the platform. And if you're looking to understand how to best use deep research, it's actually quite simple to get started. The best way to get started is to create a new chat over here. Click on this button, and then click on to deep research. Now, there is a limit on the number of deep research queries you get every month on ChatGPT Go. It's 5 per month. And so I've used one already, so I'm going to use one more of my deep research queries. And this time around, I'm going to do a bit of research on the benefits of teaching coding in Indian high schools, understand what's happening, and then also get some strategies on how I can go ahead and execute this in a small classroom environment. Now, when you trigger a deep research query, what happens is you'll actually get some questions, I call them clarifying questions, straight away. And the reason this happens is these queries can take 5 to 20 minutes for them to return. And so it's important for the clarity to be delivered right at the beginning so we get the responses we are looking for. Now, if you have a thorough prompt, your questions may be very basic or might not even come back, but you'll see my prompt was quite vague. And so my questions have come back. I'm going to be focused on grade 9. Let's go with grade 10. And then type of school, let's go with CBSE. And then over here, I can go something like use your best judgment. So in case you're not sure what the answer should be, you could also do this something like this. And then you can go. And that's enough context now for deep research to get started with actually executing on this query. Now, I mentioned a few seconds ago, it can take deep research a little bit of time to do its thing. And so we'll come back to this later in the session to see what the response looks like. All right, let's take a pause here. And Raghav, if you could facilitate some questions that have come up, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, Roshan, I think 2, 3 questions would be helpful to cover. And Sheikh already answered them in the chat, but I think the wider group would also probably benefit from hearing an answer from you live as well. And you might actually be covering these in a bit, so feel free to leave it to when you cover it. One is about how to make presentations in PPT in ChatGPT. And the question was from Kiran, and this was about, look, can I make it in Hindi? Can I make a PPT on a story based on literature? Because she's facing some issues when it comes to making PowerPoint presentations. I'll pause to see if you want to answer that, and then I can go to the next one. In fact, let me take the second one as well, because maybe your answer might be similar. The other question is from Roger from Khaitan World School, which is when I want the results to be in a downloadable docs file, it doesn't always happen. So how do I solve for that is the related question.
Okay, thank you for the questions, Raghav. And thank you to those who have asked these questions as well. So when it comes to generating PowerPoint slides, right now, ChatGPT is very good at generating the content for PowerPoint slides. So for example, I could ideate on something and create content in different languages and get a format and structure for that slide. Now, its actual ability to create what I would call visually compelling PowerPoint decks right now is relatively limited. It is an area of interest within OpenAI, and our ChatGPT agent product actually does a better job at doing this. However, there is a long way for us to go to make that to the standard that many of us are used to. So if you're looking to create basic PowerPoint exports, it is possible right now. The easiest way to do that is to go and type something like generate this as a slide deck. If you're looking for something a little bit more advanced, my preferred method of using it is I'll ask ChatGPT to come up with a storyline or a narrative into different slides. I'll ask it to generate the speaker notes. I'll essentially do all of my planning. And then if I need ideas around visual design, I actually use the image generation capability, which is over here, to help me with visual layouts for the slide as well. And this can be also an opportunity for you to create infographics from content you have instead of just traditional slides. And then Lastly, I typically put the slide pack myself together, but I've got most of the ingredients built by ChatGPT to help me get there quick. So that's the part around creating PowerPoint decks. Again, it's available right now. However, the design capabilities are still limited. In terms of trouble with downloading files, whether it's Word documents or others, occasionally there can be issues, primarily when ChatGPT is very busy and utilized by lots of people at the same time. However, it is capable of generating PDF files, Word docs, CSVs, a number of other file formats as well. And the simplest way is to often just type it in and say, please provide this to me in a PDF, and that should hopefully do the job. If that does not work, my recommendation is to copy it using something like this copy button, and then you'll have the content available for you to take elsewhere. So it should never stop you from doing something. However, if you're having a bit of friction, you can potentially do this way. One tip that I've not shared yet so far is you also have the ability to highlight a piece of text over here, and then you'll see this pop-up called Ask ChatGPT. You can use this as a bit of a quotation and actually say, do this. And then download this as a PDF. And let's go a plain, and then to, let's go with the first, oops. And hopefully in a matter of a few seconds, that should be ready for us to get going as well. So yes, we're exploring more and more ways for this to be improved so that you have an even more seamless experience. All right, Raghav, do we want to take another question, or are we happy to continue on?
Yeah, I'll let you continue. I have more questions coming, which I'll synthesize, Royston, and next time you break, I'll pose them to you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you, actually, before I go there, we'll see that our file is available. I'm going to download it. Then I've got my PDF file available as well. So you do have the ability to, for example, provide a template and ask it to match a template, which is something that is commonly done. Or you could ask it to format it differently. So there are options available. However, at this point in time, ChatGPT is not designed to be a professional word editor. So I focus more on the content it's generating versus the format that it's generated in. All right. Now, one other capability related to projects that I want to highlight here is the ability to use projects to do repeated tasks, particularly as an educator or as an administrator. So I'm going to take the scenario that I'm a geography teacher. I also teach history at school. And I've got a folder here for my class that I'm working with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach some files to this folder. And these are lesson plans I have for week 3 for history and this scenario philosophy. And what that's going to do is ChatGPT is going to take in these files that are uploading from my computer. We're going to give it a few seconds while it's done. Now you can attach Word docs, PDFs, again, a number of different file formats as well. So we'll just let that finish. So it is now finished over here. And what I can do is I can actually paste in a prompt like this. So this prompt goes, help me write an email to recap what the students learned every week based on the documents uploaded. In fact, this is my instructions. So when I created the project itself, I have the ability to set instructions for it. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to actually add instructions to this project. And the instructions are effectively a prompt that are long lasting. And so what's happening here is I'm telling ChatGPT, anytime you have a conversation with this project, keep this in mind. The reason I'm having this project is to help me write an email to recap what the students learned based on the documents that I uploaded, and I'm specifying the tone of voice. So you can craft any instruction you want over here, whether it's creating a student recap or something else. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now, what is easy for me to do next is to actually start a new conversation in this project and just go write the email based on the 3rd week program. And so what ChatGPT should do is it will refer to those documents that were uploaded to the project as files, and it can generate for me the recap in an email format that works really well for me. So now what I can do is I can copy this and potentially put that in an email. I can also go over here and say, add it to Canvas. And so if I want to edit the email right, in an interactive way in my ChatGPT, I can do that because I've now got a canvas available for me. Now, you'll notice that I did not attach the week 4 program. And so what I can also do is I can say, based on the week 3 program, generate content for the week 4 program for both of the documents. And once again, because it has access to the week 3 material, it can build on top of that and come up with ideas for me on how I can move forward with that content. So this is very, very helpful when you're starting with a blank canvas, or you're starting with a syllabus that you're working with and trying to understand how do I bring that syllabus into something that's digestible, but also save me time from the communication and administration of teaching. There's a lot of emails, a lot of reports, and you have the ability to use tools like this to reduce that administrative burden and spend more time doing the things you enjoy doing. Now, another thing you could do is, for example, set a task right within ChatGPT. And this is not a very commonly known feature. And so I'll show you what this looks like. Now, it's a relatively simple thing to actually set a task. All you need to do is in your prompt, you need to put the words set a task. So in this scenario over here, I'm going set a task for Tuesday, 10 a.m. to recap the last week's worth of education news in India with links and actionable next steps. And obviously you can tailor this to your scenario and something that's relevant for you. Now I click enter and I wait for ChatGPT to do its thing. Now, what's happening behind the scenes is ChatGPT has the ability to actually run tasks on a schedule proactively so that you always have the latest response available to you, and potentially even as a notification if you have it on your mobile device. So what's happening here is ChatGPT has thought about it. If you're interested, you can see how it's thinking about it. And we now have a task within ChatGPT for this. So you'll see that there is a name for the task. You can edit the name if you want. And then you also have the instructions that have been generated for you. However, you can also change these instructions so that they're tailored for your scenario. You can change the frequency. Now, given we asked it for weekly, I'm going to swap this to weekly on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Or you can leave it as it is. It's your choice. If you have an existing task, you can pause it, or you can even delete a task from the past. Now, what this means is that the next time it's Tuesday, which is tomorrow at 10 a.m., I will get a new prompt or new response in this conversation with the latest news in India's K-12 education with links and actionable steps. Now, if you want to see what the results of this could look like, you could actually just run the prompt itself and see what comes back. And that gives you a taste of what the response could be like. So this is what it looks like as of right now. So tomorrow morning, I suspect it will look very, very similar. So this is very helpful for things that you want to monitor, whether it's areas of professional interest, education interest, or personal interest as well. And so what we see here is that ChatGPT can essentially become more of an extension of your brain and reduce the mental workload on you having to proactively do this research, and instead do the research for you and bring it to you in a digestible way in a place that you already are in.
Royston, there
Yes.
was a question around what you just covered earlier, which is projects. Just if you could maybe say this again, how do you start a project? And also, is there any limitation on the number of projects that one can create?
Yes. So let me go through project creation again. So on your left-hand side on ChatGPT, and if you're not able to see the left-hand side, you just have to click on this button called Open Sidebar. You'll have a section that's called Projects. Should be right under GPTs. You can click on the New Project button, and there are some free templates over here. You can use one of them if you like. In this scenario, I could use homework. And if you need to modify the memory option, you can. This is only available at the beginning of the project creation, which is why it's important to know what you want to do. And most of the time, default is perfectly fine. You can go ahead and then create the project. Now, an empty project is not particularly useful because there is no additional files and there are no instructions. And so my suggestion for you would be to add some instructions into the project. Now, earlier I had some instructions. I'm going to add them in once again for everyone's benefit. This is a good place for you to exercise your prompt engineering skills. And if there are any files that you want to refer to for your project, these are also where you add them in. There are certain limits around the number of files you can add in. They are available on the help.openai.com website, which is where all of these are documented. It's roughly about 40 at the moment. Now, to your question on, is there a limitation on the number of projects? The limit's high enough that I don't think we often talk about it or I've encountered it. To my knowledge, it's north of 100. But if you're hitting those limits, you might need to search what the limit is. But as far as I know, there's no limits that meaningfully affect people.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. So we've looked at how to use projects, the usefulness for them. Now, if you have a conversation that you had outside of the project, which is quite common, it's also easy to just drag an existing conversation into a project so that it's categorized. So I also use this for organizing my conversations. It makes it easy for me to find things and allows me to bring those memories into that project as well. All right. So we're going to cover a couple more features as well. So the next feature I want to speak about is study mode. Now, some of you may have learned that study mode was launched a few months ago in ChatGPT. And the benefit of using study mode is it brings in a way of understanding a topic that is, instead of just providing you the answer, it explains the process of getting to the answer. And this can be quite helpful, particularly in the education context, because the process of learning is not just about knowing the information. It's about being able to learn that information and build upon it over time. And so if you were to enact the study mode over here, I'll give you an example of how you could be using it or a student could be using it. So in this scenario, a student is saying, I need to study geography, but I find it so boring. Please make it enjoyable. And I'm particularly interested in facts about Singapore, which is where I live. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. So we'll give it a moment for it to come back with a response. And what you'll find is that the response style is quite different compared to if you just prompt it without study mode. And if you want to test that for yourself, you could just paste that in a new conversation and see what that response looks like. And you'll see that not quite the same. And so let's go back to our previous one over here. We've got our information that's available. Now, you'll also notice that the style of conversation tends to be a little bit more interactive and engaging if you use study mode. So for example, it's now asking me, which fact did I find most surprising? And so I'm going to go with no natural resources. And so you'll see it comes back with a response. And now, once again, it tries to prompt me to think about the response that's come back and the implications of that response as well. And so in this scenario, it's asking me for what could they use to, so maybe they make things. So we'll give it a moment. And I get a more encouraging tone from ChatGPT on how to move forward. Now, once again, if you want, you can also read these answers aloud so that they're more engaging. Or you could do something similar with voice mode as well, if you have an environment where this was useful. So I encourage you to explore study mode, not just as a way for students to learn, but also for approaches that you as educators can be using to actually educate and teach others. Because there's always a limit to the number of ideas that we might have ourselves, but we can lean on ChatGPT and its ability to be more imaginative, to explore ideas that are not within ourselves. Now, another option that I want to share with you is the ability to actually use Canvas to create documents and plans. And so in this scenario over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and enable the Canvas mode. And just like the word implies, Canvas is the ability to use a canvas to work on content and generate something for you. And so I'm going to put in a prompt that says, create a document, and I want it to be a four-week unit plan for my geography high school class. And I've asked it to flesh out this plan with targets, topics, ideas, etc., etc. And maybe I can actually give it a topic. Let's go on Indian history between Now, I know many educators don't start off with a blank canvas, pardon the pun, when they're doing their work. What often happens is you actually use a syllabus that you're working with. And so I highly encourage you to actually upload the syllabus that you're working with, and then use that to potentially generate lesson plans or any other assets that would be helpful in your work. While we're covering capabilities, I think it's also helpful to understand how to leverage ChatGPT as an analyst. Now, earlier we looked at uploading Word documents, maybe some PDFs. Now you also have the ability to upload data. And so in this scenario, what I've got is some data over here. It's around utilization metrics for teachers. And this is the persona, for example, of me being a school principal. And so what I can do is I've uploaded this data. Before I do anything, I can just go describe this data. And so what that does is it gets ChatGPT to actually tell me what it has understood. And this is a generally good tip to actually do because quite often the data that we come across and we can interpret ourselves might not be well described. And if you notice that any of this is, for example, incorrect or is not what you thought it was supposed to be, you can actually correct ChatGPT and say, no, this stat is incorrect. You understood it wrongly. Please, this is what it actually is. And this is what we call context stuffing and making sure we prompt it before we action on that information. Now, in this scenario, I'm trying to see if there's any particular metrics I want to override. I think I'm happy with keeping the metrics as it is. So right now it has described the data for me, but it's not really done much more than that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a more detailed prompt to ChatGPT to work on this data. So I basically said, analyze the data, provide a summary. Maybe we don't need to, let's go with, I'm going to paste that in. Now, ChatGPT has the ability to do analysis. And if you're interested in how it does this, it has the ability to generate Python and run some code against the data that has been uploaded. And then it can generate charts, recommendations, and various other things for you as well. So first of all, we see the actual data set available. Now, this is quite useful because if the data is in, let's say, a piece of paper, you can actually take a photo of that piece of paper, upload that to ChatGPT, and now you've got a digital copy of that data set. So it's very helpful just to digitize some data. But you can do much more. You can build graphs from a simple table. Now, I uploaded a table of information. I've already got my classroom utilization over time graph built out. I've got some graphs around training hours and budgets. I've also got some other graphs around clubs and events as well. So starting off with a very basic table, I'm able to build upon so much more very, very quickly, saving me time and then allowing me to spend my time doing other things. Now, earlier we talked about generating presentations. You could also theoretically generate a presentation out of this. And while it may look basic, it allows you to have a starting point to move forward with. All right. I think this is a good natural break for us to see if there are any questions in the chat that are worth addressing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You've covered a question which came up a few times already, Royston, which is how can I use it for data analysis? Related to that, there was also a question around data cleaning. I think this came from Samir a while back, and it was about, look, I have several merged cells, numbers formatted as text, and other similar cases. Can I use it for data cleaning? And I think Sheikh may have answered it already, but I think it's helpful if you answer it for the wider audience as well.
Yes. So when it comes to data cleaning, it is possible to use ChatGPT to help with many of these tasks. However, there is some effort required on your part as the user to actually provide the right context on how to understand complex sheets of data. So what I mean by that is when you have things like merged cells, what is intuitive to us as a viewer may not be easily intuitive to a computer model. And so where possible, I recommend simplifying the data itself. So reducing the number of merged cells where possible, and also providing verbal or spoken descriptions of what the data is before you take any action on it. So fundamentally, you can use it for cleaning. However, I recommend breaking down the different cleaning activities you're doing. So whether that's digitizing, simplifying, and then maybe doing other things with it that involve cleaning the data. But yes, I recommend experimenting with it because it is possible to achieve some time-saving outcomes there.
And Royston, the other question which has come up a few times, and you spoke about it, but I think there's merit in revisiting that a little bit, is just about making presentations and PowerPoints using ChatGPT. What can it do? What can it not do? And the flow that you spoke about a little bit, creating the structure and then possibly using image gen for the images. If you're at all able to talk about that, or better still, show a little bit of that, I think it might answer a number of questions that have come up on that topic.
Okay, thank you, Raghu, and thank you to those who've asked that question as well. So let's take it to bring it to life and see what it could look like with the example we actually have on screen. So you'll see that at the bottom here, it's suggested if I want a one-page presentation summary. So I'm actually going to say, give me a 5-slide deck with this information summarized for administrator audience. So what it has done is it's given me the content of the slides, but not necessarily a PowerPoint format itself. However, it has also given me a couple of suggestions right at the bottom. So it's saying, do you want it as a presentation style PowerPoint, PDF slides, or it's actually giving me the option of creating a Canvas slide over here. And this is relatively new as a capability, and I've used it myself. If you're someone who utilizes Canva, it's a very easy way to bring your context into Canva and bring it to life. Now, I'm going to attempt to see if this works, but it is a new account that I've not used Canva with before, so it may not work today. I'd rather not experiment with it today. So let's go with the presentation option instead. And let's go, want it as a PPTX. Actually, yeah. And so it will go ahead and create a PPTX. We'll have to give it a few seconds for it to get done. And so I do have a PPTX. Now, I don't have software right on my machine that will open this natively. So I'm also going to say, provide it as PDF slides. And so hopefully the PDFs that are generated will be able to be viewed in the browser for me. So you see, we've got some very, very basic content over here. I would not really describe it as PDF slides. If you do have access to ChatGPT Agent, we have the ability to generate richer material over there. However, for the purposes of today's session, I'm not going to be exploring Agent, and my current account doesn't have access to it. And so it is possible to get richer quality ones if you're willing to explore ChatGPT Agent. All right. Now I'm going to cover one more key capability, and then we'll take on some more questions as well. So the next capability I want to cover is something called custom GPTs. Now, if we go onto the left-hand side on our sidebar, right under the word Atlas, which is the browser, we actually have GPTs. So I'd like to go ahead and click on that. Now, GPTs, as the words over here describe, they're custom versions of ChatGPT that are tailor-made for a purpose that you care about. Now, the benefit of GPTs is all of you have the ability to create them, and you also have the ability to utilize GPTs that have been created by others. So as an example, what I'll do is I will try and find one that has been created by someone else so you can see how it works. Now, I know there is one called work. Let's go and see if I can find it. may have to pardon my network connection. It's a little bit slow right now. And in the meantime, I will see if I can go ahead and create the GPT and come back to the other one that I'm thinking about in. Right, so let's go ahead and create a GPT. So this is what the configuration looks like when you want to create a GPT. And in case you've never used one before or don't know what it is, you can actually use this wizard over here to understand how to use it. So very simply, you can just type in anything over here and you can say, I want to make lesson plans for my history class. And so very quickly, for example, you can just type in natural language, and as you type things in over here, your settings are actually being modified. And so I want it to only make plans for grade 7 and grade 9. And so as you type in here, again, the settings are being updated. And what's happening behind the scenes is you have the ability to actually look by clicking on the configure button. Now, the configure button is where all that information lives that we just typed in the create button. If you feel like you are an expert in this space, you can just go ahead to configure and actually type things right in. And you'll notice that the instructions section of the custom GPT is where a lot of the magic happens. You'll see a very reasonably well-crafted prompt over here explaining the purpose, the activities that you wanted to do, and the expected outcomes. Now, it's always helpful to have some conversation starters over here. And as a GPT builder, it's important to understand, are you building this just for yourself? Or are you building it for people, for someone else? Maybe it's colleagues at work, maybe it's for the broader community. Now you can enable and disable different features over here as well. Most often, there's no harm enabling all of them. However, there are certain reasons why you might want to disable some of them. Now, if you want the GPT to access knowledge about certain things, for example, you want to upload the syllabus, this is where you can upload the syllabus by clicking on the knowledge file section. So there is benefit in understanding how this configure section works so that you can best utilize its capabilities. Now, once you feel like everything on the left is in a reasonably good place, you can just start previewing it and testing it on the right-hand side. So let's go ahead and actually use one of the starter prompts over here. And so I used this prompt, and straight away I have my preview response coming back. Now I'm going to assume that let's assume that I'm happy with what's come back over here. It's going to be done. And so the create button is not available to me because I haven't given it a name. So I'm actually going to go and give it a Royston's teaching assistant. Oops. I'm going to give it an image as well. I'll ask ChatGPT to generate one for me so I don't have to do it myself. And once that's all in a good place, I'm going to click the create button. And what that does is that it essentially publishes this GPT. Now, a lot of the time, you might be the only person who you want using this GPT, so you can restrict it to be just for you. Alternatively, if you want to share with colleagues or people on the broader internet, you have the ability to set this as anyone with the link. So I'm going to do that for today, given I think this is not too sensitive. And I'm going to click on the save button. Now it's going to take a few seconds for it to save. And I can click on View GPT. And my GPT is live. That's as simple as it is to actually create one. And so I can use any of these starter prompts that are over here. Or alternatively, I can actually say, I want a 7-week plan for my grade 9 students for the history of, let's go with Singapore. And so very quickly, I've got my 7-week plan come back. And if you're not satisfied with the response and you want to tweak something, you can actually go into this GPT and edit it so that it is better suited to what you're trying to do. And the way you do that is by going into the Explore GPT section, click on My GPTs. You can see all the ones you've created before. And so in this scenario, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the edit, and then I can change something. So I can say, only respond in Hindi. And so if you have language requirements, you can just put them in your instructions over here, and you can try that out. And so if all has worked well, my response should come back in Hindi. So you could have a GPT that just takes in English and puts out Hindi or another language of your choice. Think of them as very tailor-focused, very specific focused assistants that can get the same job done. And I'm going to update this GPT for my benefit as well. Now, this is a very specific GPT. You can also have more generic GPTs as well. So a more generic teaching assistant, maybe a translation tool, maybe a writing assistant. It could be about planning. There's just so many different avenues. In my personal life, I've used it to help guests at an event understand what they need to know before they come to an event. So there's many ways you could be using GPTs. It really just depends on whether you're creating it for yourself or you're creating for an audience, and then how can the audience get best use out of it.
Royston, I'm wondering the GPT that you've created, if you were to share the link in the chat, would people be able to access it if they have ChatGPT accounts? Because you made it accessible to everybody, I think.
Yes, so that's a great question, Raghav. The answer is yes. If I actually, now that I have this setting with anyone with a link, I can click on this copy link section, click save, and now I'm going to actually paste it in the chat. So anyone with a ChatGPT link, anyone with a ChatGPT account can actually now go ahead and use this GPT. It's important to know that any conversations you have with this GPT are not visible to the person who created the GPT. So this is any conversations you have are private to yourself. And the GPT also doesn't learn over time. I see there is a question that has come around the difference between a GPT and a project. GPTs don't learn over time. So the body of knowledge that's there stays static. However, projects are, as my colleagues have mentioned, it's more to gather context and have an evolving body of work. All right. Raghav, is there another question that would be worth addressing from the audience?
Yeah, and just with a eye on time, we have about 8 odd minutes. Do we have time to take a few live questions as well, or do you want to keep going?
There are a couple of things I would want to share before we take live questions. I do want to leave you with some resources that are worth being aware of. The first one, and I'm going to paste this link in the chat so everyone can get to it themselves. The first one is on the help.openai.com portal, which is our primary support portal. We have some FAQs for educators. And I think this is very helpful for all of you to have in mind as you approach ChatGPT as a tool, particularly in your use as a tool for education. And so it helps you understand what are some of the key considerations, particularly if you're new to this technology. As an example, ChatGPT is designed for users 13 and above. And so that sort of tackles many of the safety related conversations that often happen. So that's sort of the first resource that I wanted to point you to. The other resource that I want to share with you is OpenAI Academy. I will also post this one in the chat, but it's quite an easy link. It's academy.openai.com. There is also a QR code coming up soon. This is a content portal where we at OpenAI make sure that our learning resources are available to the broader world for free and updated on a regular basis. So everything in here is free. You can get bite-sized enablement on a number of different topics. And so you'll see that in this section on the menu, we've got an area for education. And given the audience we have here, I'm sure the K-12 section is going to be quite popular. And you can actually get live sessions on the 101, the 102, prompt packs on how to use ChatGPT, strategies for learning, and a number of different things that will help you go beyond the foundations that you've achieved in today's learning session. So I highly encourage you to create an account. It is free. Subscribe or subscribe to the content that is of most value to you. You might even choose to join the community that's in there, as well as the live events that happen on the portal so that you can continue that learning journey. And so with that approach, you will be better placed with having the right knowledge and awareness on ChatGPT in particular, but also some of the broader AI topics that are important during this time. I'm going to flash up some links so that we have access to them on screen. And that's when I can also take in some questions. All right, Raghav, how can we best do this?
Yeah, maybe 2, 3 questions that we could take live. We have about 5 minutes. I'll just say a couple of names. If you're able to unmute and ask your question live, please feel free to do so. Shilanya Lingraj, I think you had a question about being able to access custom GPTs. If you're able to unmute and ask your question, please go ahead and do so.
Good evening to everyone. I just had a doubt wherein I could not see the GPTs on the side bar, which you actually mentioned. I just have new chat, search chats, library, atlas, and projects. I don't have GPTs option over there. Can you help me out with this? I'm able to see on your screen, but not able to see on my screen.
Okay, there could be a couple of different reasons why this is the case. The first and most obvious one would be that you might not be on a ChatGPT Go account. What I will ask you to do is I'm going to paste a link in the chat, and I'd ask you to click on this link, which is the direct link for entering this GPT section. And my hope for you is that if you are to click on this link, it will take you to the section that allows you to browse GPTs, and the next link that I've pasted in will allow you to see your own.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. There's one hand up, Madhvi ma'am. I'll just come to you. And before that, if Shreyasi Mukherjee is on, I know there was some question about, I think your intent is to create images, create videos, voiceovers to make your classes more engaging, is the sense I got from your question. But if you're able to unmute and ask your question, please go ahead and do that.
Yes, see, we are the primary teachers. So, like the children are studying different chapters, like different stories to make them interesting for the primary junior kids. So, if we can like give some prompt to ChatGPT where the story can be converted to, like, for example, 6 to 7 images, and the ChatGPT can directly generate those images. And as I have got the answer in the Sora, we can change them from image to animation, somewhere like where we can create those videos so that it becomes more interesting for the students. Is there any way how we can make it through ChatGPT?
Thank you so much for your question. The short answer is yes. So Sora, I think, is particularly fantastic at this, and when this capability is rolled out globally and widely available, I highly encourage you to look in there because I've already seen people bringing history to life through Sora. If you're thinking about how to do this in ChatGPT, the most simple way is to just get started by typing in your prompt. So I'll do it on screen here. Maybe I'll take an example of, can you visualize the Roman era period and maybe an interaction between a Roman emperor and some of his subjects? Now, this is obviously a very superficial, basic interaction, but you could create comic books out of something like this. Make it as a comic book with 6 scenes. And then you can actually choose the styles over here as well. So let's go with the anime style. And while we take our next question, this will hopefully be generated. So the short answer to your question is the components and ingredients are there. The possibilities are growing rapidly, particularly now that video generation is here with us. But as soon as video generation becomes even broadly available, I think history is going to be transformed because I find it much more visually engaging to watch history through video. And we didn't have the luxury when I was in school, but I know kids in the future will be much more privileged than I was.
Super.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
And Madhvi ma'am, maybe you can, I don't know if you're still there, but we can take your question live if you're still there.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thank you, sir,
Please.
for this really, interesting training. Really, we learned many things. The same thing just now, ma'am asked this question, right? It was the same question, like generating the with the video, pictures with the video. But it will take more time if I'm, you can see as of now. But can we make it as a duration little quickly? Because sometimes we want to show it in a class as before 10 minutes or 5 minutes, but it will take longer, like 1 to 2 hours, so it is really difficult to get this video to done. So what is the other option to will get quickly? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'm hoping that the 1 to 2 hours part isn't common. At least in my experience, it's typically 2 to 5 minutes, as we can see right now. The reality is right now, the amount of infrastructure required to generate rich content like this is limited in the world, and therefore it makes limitations on us as OpenAI as well. Over time, my current suggestion for you is it does require preparation, and most likely that would need to be done before the class gets started. So there's nothing stopping you, for example, from doing this before the class. But if you're looking for more real-time and rapid generation, there are some infrastructure limitations that slow us down. But in this scenario, you can see it took us about 2 minutes for us to get something like this. And yeah, it's only going to get better, or rather, this is the worst it will ever be.
The answer.
Thank you for your question. I'm happy to take on one more question if the audience is willing to stay on.
I can open it up. If anybody has a question, please feel free to unmute and we can take it. Yeah, Kaushik Banerjee, please go ahead.
Is this features which Roshan sir told, these features available only in ChatGPT 5 or like normal ChatGPT or ChatGPT Go?
Everything I've shown you today is in ChatGPT Go, and almost all of these features are also available in regular ChatGPT. The only one that is of note that you will have differences is in the free ChatGPT version, as in no privileges beyond free. You cannot create a GPT. In order to create one, you will need to use either a Go account, a Plus account, or a Pro account. But given soon all of India will have access to a Go account for zero cost, I think that means all of you will soon have this capability. Beyond that, the difference between free, Go, Plus, and Pro is just the amount of usage you have available to you. So just like we saw earlier when we were looking at this upgrade screen, it's primarily focused on the different types of models as well as expanded limits as well. So you'll notice, for example, Sora video generation right now is a plus feature. Obviously, our goal is to make sure many of these things can be as widely available as possible, but there are certain constraints around infrastructure and resources that limit us from doing that. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Royston, I know we are a little past time, so we should try and close out. Any closing comments on your side? And then I want to leave a quick message with everyone.
My main closing comment is a huge thank you to everyone here who's taken the time out of your day to learn and to upskill yourselves. It's been a privilege for me to be able to share this with people who are shaping the future. And I'm hopeful that you will continue your learning journey. Today, for me, is just the start of the journey when it comes to hard skills on ChatGPT. But I hope that you've gotten some ideas. Hopefully you can also do this as a group of and community. It's a lot easier to learn when there's groups of people learning together. So as you learn, please share with the people around you, share your tips and tricks, and that is the best way for us to move forward as a society.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Royston. This has been amazing. Three quick things I'd like to leave with you before you go. One, we will share the recording. You can, look back at it, go at it at your own pace, revisit some of the material that Royston covered. Second, a feedback form has been shared. It takes literally 30 seconds, 45 seconds, but please do share feedback because we'd love to be able to do more of these sessions and your feedback will help a lot. And thirdly, very importantly, ChatGPT Go is going to be available free to all of India from tomorrow. It currently costs 399 rupees per month. And we will share instructions on how to avail of that through Arise. You can also go to the ChatGPT website and instructions should be available from there as well. So please do make use of this. It will be available for 12 months and you can sign up for the free offer anytime between the 4th of November and the end of the year. So that's the sign up period and then it will be available for 12 months for free. Thank you so much for joining and we hope to see you another time. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It was an amazing session.
Thank you for giving all the valuable information.
You're welcome.